So I normally start my episodes with references to a change in the law or a push by a corporation to get more market share or something like that. But with this episode, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to start with a scenario. It's in the future and a time where physical cash is no more. So imagine you wake up to a crash outside your house. A tree fell right in front of your window. The lights go out and you spend the rest of the evening and morning with a flashlight in an interior closet riding out the storm. The next day you drive to the store and realize that it's not just your neighborhood that's out of electricity. You go inside and ask if they're open. They're not because the payment machines are down. This is the future, and everyone uses digital currency. You might even have a digital wallet on your phone, but if the stores can't accept them because their machines are down, then it's still useless. If only people still use cash. Now take this scenario. You go to a store. This time it's just a normal day. Electricity is working just fine. You pick up a few necessities and you go to the checkout counter and you swipe your smartphone. It lets out an awful noise, not the kind of pleasant tone you get when a transaction went through. So you try it again. Nothing. You check your balance and you see zeros, but not the good kind of zeros, where there's a number in front of those zeros. They're zeros. You've been hacked. You're out of luck. If only people still use cash. You can at least have that as a backup. That's the problem with digital. And if you aren't convinced by the scenarios, then I'll tell you a little story from August 2005, from the past. It's my story. I was a college student studying political science in Mississippi. Hurricane Katrina had made landfall on the coast. I was in the northern part of the state, but we still got hit, and we got hit hard. Heavy winds took down power lines and brought down trees, even as it made its way up to Tennessee. The power went out and we didn't get it back for days. And I was not prepared since I didn't have cash on me. I was using a debit card mostly. But the electricity was out, so I couldn't use my debit card because, the machines didn't work. So I wanted to go get cash at the ATMs, but those were down as well. I made do with the food I had in my apartment, and luckily I had some cash on me, so I was able to get a few things. But that's a lesson I learned. Always keep a little bit more cash on hand for those kind of scenarios. Physical cash doesn't get hacked. You can't remotely drain a leather wallet that lives in your back pocket. And a $20 bill has never been subject to a data breach. But what the Senate did in August of 2026 is put America on a path to end the tried and true physical currency that you could use come rain or shine. In this episode, I'll explain what the Senate did and how they did it. I'll let you know who is behind it and what they'll gain. And most importantly, I'll tell you what everybody else loses if their plan succeeds. This is Plain Meaning, and this episode is the sneaky attempt to end cash. The echo chamber. Late in the evening on August 7th, 2026, the Senate chamber was mostly empty. It was a Friday night and the last day before August recess. The few that were in their seats were already showing signs of distraction. The senator acting as a temporary president of the session repeatedly had to resort to using his arms to keep his head up.
Without objection.
He spent a good amount of time reading a book. It was 10:53 p.m. when another senator among the empty chairs stood and asked to be recognized. A little over 2 minutes later, by 10:55 p.m., that senator had brought up a bill for recognition along with an amendment, and it passed by an empty room. If you look up the vote for it, you won't find it. In fact, the bill wasn't actually voted on at all. There were no yeas or nays. There was just silence. It, along with the amendment it was bundled with, was pushed through by something called a unanimous consent agreement. But we'll talk more about that later. First, we need to understand what the bill would actually do if it was signed into law. Immediately, it would end the production of the penny permanently. The Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, claimed he had already done that in 2025. But in reality, he couldn't. According to current law, he could only defer minting more pennies temporarily by claiming supply was sufficient for demand. But that premise became obviously false shortly after he made the announcement. People hoarded and supplies to banks and other institutions dwindled. Within weeks, You had signs in stores across the country saying there was a shortage of pennies, and they had to round up or down. Regardless of which way they went, most transactions with cash were now dealing with figures that were just not true. The second thing the bill would do if signed into law, according to an amendment authored by a senator from Wyoming that refers to herself as the crypto queen, would give the Treasury Secretary the power to end the other coins too. The nickel, the dime, even the quarter. That's the amendment that was combined with the bill on that Friday night before recess. I'm sure they were hoping nobody would notice, but I did. So I'm not just making stuff up about this being the first step toward an end to physical currency. I mean, why give an agency the power to end something if you weren't expecting that power to be used? And as the nickname of the senator who authored that amendment demonstrates, and even the biography of the other senator who stood up to bring it to that empty chamber shows, the end of cash would end up being quite lucrative for a very small group of people. Before I move on, if you like what you see and you think others should see it too, like this video and subscribe to the channel. It gives a signal to YouTube to push this video out to others, and it will also let you know when I send out follow-ups on this and other issues. I'll give you a few seconds. Okay, the pushers. So who are the people behind this bill? And who are the people behind those people? Well, let's take a look. Senator Cynthia Lummis of Wyoming, the one known as the Crypto Queen, wrote the amendment that would give Treasury the power to end the coins. She also has other nicknames as well, to include the Bitcoin Senator. She's heavily invested in the digital currency with around $250,000 worth of the asset. And she could have millions of more, but we really don't know. Why? Because all that money, around $14 million worth, is in a blind trust. But I would venture to guess that it's safe to assume there's much more of her wealth tied up in the companies that want to replace the dollar. We just can't see it because of the blind trust. And of course, her donors and backers would benefit handsomely. Investment firms and technology firms that are working to build a replacement to the dollar put millions to supporting Lummis and others. From Chainlink Labs, who maintains a decentralized computing platform connecting blockchains with real-world data, to Andreessen Horowitz, who is the largest crypto venture firm in the world. Firms that would benefit tremendously by being the ones that control a replacement of physical cash have backed her and others like her enthusiastically. And she is apparently trying to deliver what would basically be a forced migration to their products with that late night amendment. The more you make physical currency hard to use, the more denominations you in production of, the more people are forced to look for alternatives. But it goes beyond cash. And we could see this clearly by taking a good look at a car salesman from Ohio turned senator. The senator that roused the sleeping presiding officer from his book and passed the amendment Lummis wrote within a matter of 3 minutes within an empty Senate chamber. His name is Bernie Moreno, and he reportedly gained his wealth through a car dealership he ran in Cleveland. That eventually turned to a fixation on documents, but not just any documents. He wanted to get rid of physical documents that prove ownership, like titles to a house or to cars, and have them fully digital. So when you combine the author of the amendment that was pushed that night in the Senate and the senator who called for its passage, you have a position that wants to remove all independent physical ways to pay and prove ownership and turn it over to a system that requires electricity and processing power to make payments or prove you even own something. And the biggest piece of this, the whole reason that entities like Andreessen Horowitz and other blockchain supporters would put millions of dollars behind it, is who controls the infrastructure of that new system once cash goes away. But we'll get to that in a moment. First, we need to talk about how they pushed these bills in the first place. Sneaky, sneaky. So how do you pass a bill in Congress without any votes? I mean, really? How do you? According to the Constitution, it's not possible. You can't do it. Article 1, Section 7, Clause 2. But in all such cases, the votes of both houses, by yeas and nays, and the names of persons voting for and against the bill, shall be entered on the journal of each house respectively. What the handful of leaders of both chambers are claiming regarding this bill is that a lack of objection means the bill passes. They use the term unanimous consent. So, by their logic, late at night on August 7th, in a mostly empty chamber, a senator asking for unanimous consent to empty chairs was the equivalent of passing a bill. That should make you worry. And not just about this bill, but a lot of the other bills that magically end up law, despite no votes for their approval one way or the other. A deep discussion about this and other shady practices that Congress does will be part of another episode. But for now, it's sufficient to show you what the Constitution says and what our history shows and what's happening now, because those two are not matching.
I ask unanimous consent that the Committee on Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs be discharged from and the Senate proceed to the immediate consideration of S. 1525.
The clerk will report.
S. 1525, a bill to direct the Secretary of the Treasury to stop minting the penny and so forth and for other purposes.
I ask unanimous consent that the Lummis substitute amendment, which is at the desk, be considered and agreed to, the bill as amended be considered, read a third time, and passed, and that the motions to reconsider be considered, made, and laid upon the table.
Without objection.
Regardless, it's not over yet. We're in a critical phase, yes, but it can still be stopped. But I'll save that for the end, because right now we're going to go take a brief look at what the world looks like if cash is gone. The new middlemen. So it's a bit funny. The people that are looking to end cash, and even those that only go so far as to say, oh, well, it's just the penny for now, they are taking these actions to get rid of the middlemen, so they say. They are somehow linking getting rid of cash with getting rid of those middlemen. That logic is, well, illogical. Banks are middlemen. The current financial industry are indeed middlemen as well. The digital payment entities like credit card companies and payment aggregators create a system of settling transactions that involve nothing but middlemen. I would dare say a plethora of middlemen. The more time and more entities that process a simple payment means more fees and charges and profits for them. And of course, somebody has to pay for this. Somebody has to pay. And it's you. It comes at the expense of you, the consumer, and the shopkeeper or the gas station owner or whoever it is on the other side of the transaction. It's the two people who are doing business with each other, or at least trying to, that are the ones paying for those middlemen. And it is quite lucrative. You ever wonder why you see so many Visa and MasterCard ads? Their logo showing up as sponsors of sporting events and basically anything else? They have money to spend because they're making loads of it. And they're using that to get you to use credit even more, so they could make even more. But cash has nothing to do with that. Nothing. In fact, cash is the only way you can get rid of the middleman. Well, other than using gold or bartering. When you hand another person cash, by law, that is currency and it's worth something. And you could use that in a department store on Fifth Avenue in New York or a small corner grocery store on the edge of Fairbanks, Alaska. Just you and the person you're doing business with. That's cash. Don't let them confuse you. The middlemen and the cash have nothing to do with each other. What the crypto industry wants, or at least a small group of them want, is to get rid of that credit card and payments processing system that currently exists and replace it with a new system they'll control. So yes, these entities that are pushing these types of bills, they want to get rid of those middlemen, but they want to replace them with themselves. You think that machines are neutral? You think that these types of systems, whether they're blockchain systems or any type of digital wallets, are neutral? They are designed and run on patented programs and software. They are proprietary systems. And with that new system they want to build, it's nothing but middlemen. Let me break it down for you. So first off, how are you going to store digital or cryptocurrency? Well, you need a wallet. But instead of being made of leather, it's made of silicon and circuits. And it runs on specialized software created by a handful of companies. Some of the dominant players currently are the likes of Phantom Wallet and Coinbase Wallet. These players and other firms that are involved like Matter Labs and Aleo that push out specialized software for securing wallets are invested heavily by the same entities that are pushing the bill to end the penny and the other currencies. And other firms are involved, like Matter Labs and Aleo, that push out specialized software for securing those wallets. These are all proprietary. You would have to rely on them to access your money. And if the entity you rely on goes under or their systems become compromised, then that money ends up becoming somebody else's money. And it's not something I'm just making up. It's actually happening right now with the current systems. And that's just the step of simply holding your digital currency, if you can hold it. You would also have to rely on internet service providers and electrical grids just to use it. No matter what safeguards are put in place, the nature of a digital currency puts you constantly at risk because your money is digital and is on a system that is constantly exposed to remote access. I mean, that's the whole point, right? If you can reach it, then theoretically anybody can. Cash, you can keep that in your house or in your drawer. You could hide it under your bed or in a shoebox. You can do whatever you want with it because you control every aspect of it. You don't have to go to anybody else just to see your cash or to use it. And as I pointed out, it's not just about cash. The ending of the penny and creating a power for an agency head to end the other coins as well is just one step toward creating a fully digital system that we're all forced to use. Remember Senator Moreno, the one that wants your deeds and car titles and basically all your ownership documents on a blockchain? If that happens, if you thought online bank account freezes were bad, just imagine what happens to everything else. What if all of your assets were able to be taken by simply using a few keystrokes? That's what could happen. That's as far as I need to go for now. I'll go much farther into other aspects of this and how it ties into some of the other puzzling activities that have been going on in the United States the past few years. But that's for another episode. For now, I'm going to end on what you can do if you want to keep your option of using cash. Because at the end of the day, this is about you being able to keep an option or them being able to take it away. There's nothing wrong with wanting to build something new. And digital currency can be useful. I mean, I've used it. But to take away another thing that provides every individual the benefit of privacy and independence, simply because you want to force people to adopt what you're building, that's just plain wrong. That's not how America is supposed to function. What they're trying to do is a lot like the hostile takeovers of some of America's most beloved companies in the 1980s. And it would end up with roughly the same result. A handful of people at the very top getting massively rich while everybody else pays for it. So here's where we are and what you can still do. First, it can only be stopped if people know what's happening. There's a reason they push this quietly late at night on a Friday. They don't want people to notice until it's all over. It's not over yet though. So if you haven't already, like this video and subscribe to the channel. And after you're done watching, share it with somebody you know that will watch it fully. I'm at the mercy of algorithms, and YouTube picks up on signals to push a video. And likes and shares and full viewings are the biggest signals that make the algorithm push something. So like now and share in a few moments. Second, you're going to want to reach out to 3 people. One is your Congress member, and the other 2 are your 2 senators. Remember, you have 2. And you want to simply tell them where you stand. If you want to save the penny as well as the other physical coins and currency, tell them to reject the Common Sense Act and reject the Loomis Amendment. Both the House and Senate passed versions of the bill, but the House would still have to take it up, again because of that amendment that was added at the last minute, at night. So, there is still a chance for it to be stopped, but you have to let your Congress member and senators know. And feel free to include the link to this video when you send your message to your Congress member and your senators. Sometimes I wonder if they're even really paying attention. Well, at least most of them anyway. There's obviously a small group that, well, they're paying attention and they're maneuvering things. The rest of them, well, not entirely sure what they're doing. They definitely weren't in the chamber that Friday night.
Without objection.